Welcome, everybody. My name is Gail Spat, and I'm the Director of Research Administration in the Office of the Executive Vice President for Research. We're really excited to have all of you at our town hall today. A couple of quick housekeeping things before we get started. There is a Q&A feature, so please, as early as you like, go ahead and enter questions into that Q&A. This event will be recorded, and it'll be archived on the STAMP's Health Center website, so please feel free to visit there or to direct others there. And the last thing is, if you've got your VPN on, you are probably going to get better system performance if you turn that off. So moving forward, as I said, we're really glad to see you all here. This is a way that we can share information and hear from all of you about your questions and your concerns. And we use that feedback, of course, to modify Georgia Tech's operations as we all shift in response to COVID-19. Back on May 28th, we sent details about Tech's plan to ramp up on-campus operations over the summer in anticipation of returning to in-person learning this fall. And we have committed throughout this process to communicating regularly about the effect of COVID-19 on our operations. Our intention is to move forward safely, responsibly, compassionately, and our goal is certainly to return as safely as we possibly can. So many of us are anxious about how this might be accomplished, and we want to provide you with as much information as possible to lessen the uncertainty, while keeping in mind that things change and we are all remaining as flexible as we have to be. The presenters today, of course, are focused on research at Georgia Tech. We've invited campus leaders who are at the center of conversations about about Georgia Tech's research enterprise and ramp-up plans. And after they give us some initial remarks, we will take questions, including some that have already been submitted. So just a quick overview of who's on today. We've got Dr. Chaouki Abdallah, who's our Executive Vice President for Research, Dr. Christopher Jones, who's Professor and William R. McLean Chair in the School of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering. Chris is also our former Associate Vice President for Research and continues to be a true friend to our office and taking on his role in really guiding this research ramp up. We've got Dr. Benoit Montreuil, who I hope is very understanding, because I'm sure I just butchered the pronunciation of his name. He is the Coca-Cola Material Handling and Distribution Chair and Professor in the H. Milton Stewart School of Industrial and Systems Engineering. And we also have, to supplement when we get to our Q&A portion, Butera, who is our Vice President for Research Development and Operations in the EVPR office. And so we are going to start with Dr. Chaouki Abdallah making his introductory remarks.
Thank you, Gail, and thank you all for joining us on this town hall. As you know, we had scheduled this town hall about a week earlier, and then we postponed it. And I really want to acknowledge the moment that the nation and we're going through right now, both because of COVID, but also because of all the national and local concerns that are faced by many of our colleagues, especially our African American colleagues and so on. I think this is a time to make sure that we both reach out, and we're also understanding that people are going through a very difficult time already. They were going through a difficult time, but this is also a moment in history that we're witnessing right now. I'm hoping and encouraging everyone to be understanding, to do their part to try to make sure that everybody is able to focus on their lives as well as on the job at hand, which is what we're here for. It's very important for us that the research enterprise goes back to full speed. As you know, we didn't go all the way down, and many of you have been engaged or involved in many to try to support the national and the level of needs that came up in our city and in our state. In order to do so, I have asked Dr. Jones to convene a task force to try to ramp back up the research enterprise. And He's gonna come next, and he's gonna talk to that. Dr. Montreuil, Dr. Benoit Montreuil, is someone who's an expert in logistics, and as part of ramping up, we have a lot of needs that obviously will require some expertise in logistics, and we have the best experts in the world here at Georgia Tech. So Dr. Montreuil and his team prepared something that I think you will find very useful, and I wanted him to be able to share that with us. And of course, Dr. Butera is here because he's been involved intimately in all aspects of the ramp up. So with that, I'll give it to Chris, Dr. Jones, to talk to you about the research task force.
Great. Thank you, Chaouki. Appreciate the opportunity to share with you a brief update on longstanding activities within the task force. I really only have these 3 points that have been on your screen for a little while that I want to leave you with, leaving plenty of time for information about Benoit's activities as well as for Q&A. So we have a plan in place. We think it's a good plan, but it's not a perfect plan, and it's not a static plan. So we're going to continue to improve, optimizing based on feedback that we get from many members of our Georgia Tech constituency. So I ask that you support each other in this process and continue to have patience with each other. This is a time when we need to rely on our strong Georgia Tech community. And we're going to see situations, we're all going to encounter situations that don't quite go as we originally intended. And so gentle reminders and encouragement to colleagues around face coverings, proper distancing, and other protocols are appropriate. We should recognize when we come back to campus that conditions will have changed for everyone. So everyone is going to be doing their job duties in an environment that's very different from the environment that they left. So we want to be patient with each other, but we also want to be persistent in trying to strive for a safe working environment. I also want to encourage all faculty and staff to remember that the institution primarily exists to serve our students, and our graduate and undergraduate students have had their progress towards their degrees delayed for obvious reasons, and we want to come together to help them continue on their path to earning their degrees. But we also have a very important professional research mission. It's critical to national security as well as the local and national economy, and that's why we're ramping up our research in this slow but deliberate way, is that our institution is important to the city, important to the state, important to the nation. So getting back to research is important from that perspective as well. So those are the 3 thoughts I wanted to leave you with. I'll be here for the remainder of the discussion, and I'll help in answering any questions that come up. Thanks.
Okay, I think next, Benoit, I'm sorry, let me say, Benoit, it's up to you, and you know, we have the presentation. They can advance it for you. You need to give the signal to do that, and you know, try to keep it. You know, I know you have a lot of information, but try to keep it to about 15 minutes if possible.
Benoit, you are muted.
Okay. Good. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I'll run you through the plan that we have put together, interacting with a bunch of people in our team at Supply Chain Logistics Institute to help guarantee that we'll have secure supply.
Benoit,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. There's some people who don't have the correct link. Is there a way to either resend it or put it in the chat? There's some people are complaining they can't log on. I'm sorry.
It seems that the Daily Digest link was the old one saying June 10th. If they will change the 10 to 17, so it will be c.gatech.edu/JUN17-research, and they should be able to log in then. So they just need to change it from June 10 to June 17. We apologize about that.
It's in the chat also now.
Did you? Okay.
Okay, let me jump in again. So let us show you what we've got planned. Can you go to slide 1, please? So basically, we concentrate first, okay, on the key PPEs. Okay, gloves, surgical mask, cloth mask, and sanitizer, disinfecting spray and wipes. And we're concentrating on getting us through the summer, but also planning through the fall. So first phase 1, phase 2, and fall. So keep going, please. Next slide. So basically, the idea is that we're undertaking coverage and supply for all the campus. Okay, so with the goal of having sufficient PPE inventory across campus, putting together a nice distribution plan across campus, and also ensuring usage tracking and protocol so that we can learn more about the demand, the consumption, and also avoid exceeding hoarding or people feeding their house or whatever households with all kind of PPEs. So we want it to be safe, smart, and scalable. So we play on two levels, okay? One is making sure that we're gonna get on campus enough PPE to be safely playing this game, understanding the high uncertainty that we have now on capabilities, capacities, and notably on lead times for vendors. Okay, so this is very fluctuant, and I'll show you in a few minutes, okay, the kind of the things we're facing. On the other side, okay, what we've got on campus, we want to make sure that every person on campus will have, that is under the researcher here in our case, okay, will be supplied with appropriate PPEs in their lab. Okay, so we've put something that next slide, please. Okay. And understand that the number of people, the consumption, etc. Right now they're very uncertain. So we have numbers. What we've put together is a system that will every day update our knowledge and update our notion. So the principles of machine learnings applied here. So the idea is that as of now, we've put the forecast for return to campus on people. So I'm showing here like 9 scenarios, and depending on for phase 1, phase 2, in fall percentage of people coming back. So it goes from 5% all the way to 25, and then 5 to 75 on phase 2, etc. And we're trying right now to go for the most conservative ones, but at the same time, we're tracking the full picture. Next slide, please. We translate all this, okay, with basic consumption estimates that we got from participating labs and people that were the executive team for the early estimations, okay. Got predictions for cloth mask and all the other ones, okay, in terms of each phase. And for like cloth mask is 1 per person normally, except if they lose it, etc. So we have like the requirements for each phase according to each scenario. Next slide. We see in the other slides the kind of forecasts that we have, predictions that we have for hand sanitizer, but now that's consumed every day. So we got it more precise in our software. We are tracking this like daily basis, but here I'm showing it by month, what we're expecting in each month and cumulative. Next slide. Okay, so we've got that for gloves. Next slide. So, yeah, normally I'm used to click myself, so next slide. So this is gloves. We have to do it by size and type, surgical mask, so you've got them all here, okay? So, and we're updating this on a daily basis. What we're doing also is we know for every recent, but we don't know the rest. So there's a part of what's available on campus that as of now is unknown to us. So everyone that wants to participate and help us on this, that'd be great. So what we're tracking is the overall quantity that we've got on campus, and we have the predictions. And for each scenario, we're tracking up to what time we would be okay given this scenario. So you see some here, at the time we did it, they had stock for until 25th of June, while others we had plenty of stock way into the fall. So that depends on the size type. Okay. Next slide. We have to deal with uncertainty just to show you, because otherwise it's hard to comprehend because it's not usual. Let's take the gloves, okay, Excel, and you see that for the Excels, the lead time that is proposed by and that has been realized by suppliers range from 7 days to 130 days recently, and with a median around 53%. So that's a lot of things. So imagine that you think you're going to get it soon, but in fact can take 4 months. So we have to play with this, and it varies depending on size and types of PPE. Next slide, please. So basically, based on what we've done, okay, and all this, so we've got algorithms that compute and say right now we're checking what needs to be ordered on any given day, and now we're like at the time we did this, those was the numbers that had to be ordered rapidly, so that would put us on track readily. Those have been transferred to EHS for replenishing. That is to make sure that we've been robustly taking their track. So the idea here is that we want to make sure that on campus we're going to play safe, have enough of all the PPEs to deal, but understand that due to the uncertainties, we're trying to keep on track, be conservative, but this is very, very dynamic world, okay? So next, once we've got it on campus, okay, in reasonable quantity, the idea is how we distribute it across campus. Please change slide. Okay. Yeah, keep next slide also. So this, I don't have time for this. So next slide. So let me work it out, okay, the principle that we're putting together, okay, that deals with trusting everybody, okay, in there, knowing that all the researchers, they're all knowledgeable, okay, and basically we say, let's try to work this out together. So basically we need input on consumption so that we can get better at understanding the demand across campus, per person, per type of labs, and so on. So what we're asking is for ideally each researcher just to log, okay, I'm going to show you the kind of app we're putting together. Okay, so a simple app that says we're going to have a depot in the lab, a small depot in the lab where you just go there and pick the gloves or mask, okay, that you need. We just ask you to take like 5, 10, 15 seconds max, okay, just to click and say, here's what I've taken, thank you. Okay, that's it, okay, in there. So we have two ways of doing this. One will be per usage, but also in some cases there are too many people, there's maturity level, whatever, but some labs may select to just say, let's have one person in charge that's going to log it on daily basis what we've used. We support both ways. Now, the logic is we're going to try, remember, we have plenty of on campus, okay? What we're going to do is put 3 days robust inventory in the lab. So this means that in the lab, you always have 3 days, and not average 3 days, but 3 days at 99.9%, okay? Very conservative to make sure. And what we're gonna do on a daily basis, we're gonna come back, okay, and given consumptions, okay, we're just gonna get that has been logged, we're gonna make sure that you resupply. So you don't have to reorder anything about the PPEs that we've mentioned, except if you've got exceptional. You drop the box of gloves in something, they're not good anymore, so we need the urgent. That's another thing will facilitate this also. So very easy at the lab level, okay? Next slide. So that's the kind of slide that we're talking about, okay? Here I'm showing the ones where it's individual consumption. This one, there's been some security issues that we want to make sure. So this one will not be operational by tomorrow, but the other one, I've already put the access to the other version that's a bit more complete, that allows you to say that I've consumed 2 of these, 5 of these, etc., and just submit, and that's it. That one is already functional, okay? I've put it in the chat, the link that you can use to make it happen and exploit it. Everybody on campus, okay, can have access to this. You're going to be automatically recognized, and we're going to log this with us. So we're tracking all this so that we can help the supply. Now, next slide. So basically, we've got each lab has its own PPE depot. And basically now we have, in each building, we have a PPE depot with a building distributor. That's the person or set of persons that are going to feed the depot. So we say at night, early in the morning when it's quiet, these people will just come and have a list, a delivery list to feed each lab, okay, about the quantity depending on what they've consumed the day before, maintaining the 3-day robust. So very simple process, okay, in there. In each building depot, we're right now, to play safe, we're putting 2 weeks of inventory. So you're gonna have 3 days in your lab, 2 weeks of 2 weeks in your building, and we've got, like in some cases, a few months of stock directly on campus. So we want to make sure you trust everything, and we're going to make sure that you've got access online. So if you want to see how many days of stock we have of everything, quantities, all of this will be made transparent to you all, so that you can be safe that you don't need to hoard, okay, and play around the system. Next slide, okay. Now we show basically the same principle on campus. EHS will hold for the moment, okay, this will evolve through time, with the responsibility may shift to another organization, but the idea is they'll hold the campus inventory, and their job will be to prepare what needs to be shipped at each building. Right now we're telling each building will have this 2 weeks of stock and will be replenished like on a 2-day basis in there, but if we feel that it's more, a bit less, we'll adapt accordingly. So very simple, a kit, okay, that's going to be sent to each PPE. So that's the kind of logic that we have. All the transactions are logged. So this way we have a good feed about what are consumed, okay, on every lab, etc., so that we can get there. So right now I'm not showing these statistics here, okay, but some buildings have like 200 days of stock of some PPEs, okay, while others have exactly 1 day of stock, okay, in there. So you have to understand that it's very variable in there. So what we need is to get fair and solid for all of this. Next slide. So overall, that's the picture. Okay, we control in each lab, okay, with the users, make it very easy for them to pick up. They don't have to get out of the lab to get it, just directly in the lab in a small depot. Then each lab is going to be fed by a building depot, okay, and each building will be fed by EHS and collaborators on that one. Next slide. So, well, this is what I'm showing you is kind of the basic, okay? So this is really just make sure that we can start. As we get to through phase 1, we'll improve everything that we have. Your feedback will be welcome, so that we get in the next few weeks, get much better at it and clean up the apps and the process a bit more. And so that then when we start phase 2 with more people, we're ready to face the music with a better orchestrated. If we're stuck to do this longer, okay, so how long will we have to do this? Okay, it can be through the fall, but it can be longer than this. So then we can try, one of our aim, by the way, is to make sure that this is as etc. So try to be touchless and minimal flow of people to get their stuff and so on. So that's why we try to keep the people where they are. But through time, okay, there's potential, like is already done at Georgia Tech or some places, is exploit vending machines with your bus card, so easy to do, or dispensers, okay, wall dispensers, okay, that we could, again, use a bus card and variants on this. So next slide, and that's my last one. So we're going to work always in the back. What I've not shown you is all the optimization models, okay, that are in the back, and prediction models that are in the back, to make sure that all this, we're getting that data and take smarter decisions. We're going to improve software and interface. We're going to add like control tower and dashboard available for everybody, so that you can see all the KPIs, the state of it, etc. So you don't have to be nervous. I mentioned vector free. We're doing everything in our possible so that we're not going to propagate contamination through all of this. Okay. At one point, okay, there's going to be a switch of responsibility as we're going to get away from COVID, from having this financed by Georgia Tech, and maybe back to the labs. But what we say is the kind of things that we've put together scheme, okay, can work well under both. And I don't want to get in that picture myself here. That's over my paycheck here. And then essentially, there's potential to expand or reduce the scale when COVID is done. And by the way, what we're trying to do here at Georgia Tech, okay, every campus in America and across the world has to live such situation. Some are better prepared for it, etc. But if we do it well and can produce that we're really doing good, this can become a role model that we can export and feed to many campuses around the world. So I'll welcome any questions, comments that you may have. And last word, we're running like crazy, okay, to make sure that everything's ready on time, which is almost tomorrow, as we say, and especially within next week to get you better served. Thank you.
Benoit, thank you. I think that you've done an incredible amount of work in a short amount of time, and I think that's going to be really useful to all of us on campus. So we really appreciate that.
But we really need collaboration. Okay, so if the researchers, the lab managers, etc., don't get in, it's not going to work as best. Okay, so we need your help, Paul. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let me try to maybe put it in context. I should have done this earlier, a little bit earlier, but as part of the re-entry, the reboot of the research enterprise, we had different metrics and different things we needed to do. And one of them is, of course, the availability of PPEs. The other one is we talked about this is going forward is the availability of testing and contact tracing and so on. And there's work in parallel on that, to have testing on campus that we will be able to conduct ourselves, as well as contact tracing apps and so on. So this is one part of it, and it is really mainly focused on those people who are going into the labs and they need the PPEs either because they gave them when we requested them, or when the state needed them, they gave them away, or going forward, we're going to need them in many more places. There are other things that we did not have to do before, including disinfecting every place and so on. We had to clean, but not necessarily disinfect. And we have done a lot of work in that space also, including coming up with our own disinfecting solution, or hand sanitizers, I should say, and so on. And those could be part of what Benoit was talking about. So with that, I think I'll open it for the questions and decide. Gail, you're going to monitor and tell us who the question should go to.
Yes, thank you, Chaouki. I believe this first one is for you, and you can throw it over to others if you need to. But the question is about the campus guidance on recommending versus requiring mask usage. The person comments, to my knowledge, we are the only R1 that has announced fall plans that has not also required masks for on-campus activity. Do you want to start, Chaouki?
Yeah, I'll start with that. I'll take it. So, so we did actually request for Georgia Tech that we would be required, and guidance from the system came back that we can not require it all across campus, but rather choose different buildings or different areas where we can do it. And that's what we started doing, to say in some buildings, if you cannot maintain physical distancing, we're going to require it. Now, ultimately, what we're trying to do here is do it in two ways. One is to try to indeed maintain physical distance, to say you must have a mask within a certain building, but the other way to do it is to model good behavior, including things by the leaders, we are not able to require it everywhere on campus, but if you are in places where physical distance cannot be maintained, then the local director of that space or the responsible for that space could require that mask will be used. And it wasn't just simply a Georgia Tech decision. This is the guidance that came down from the system.
Thank you, Chaouki. Chris, you answered this question in the chat. Will undergraduates be able to work in labs in the fall? Do you want to expand on that at all? Sure,
I'll say a few words. So our current plan is that we do want to facilitate undergraduate research in the fall when our undergraduates return to campus. Undergraduate research is an important learning experience for our students, and it's also an important mentoring experience for our graduate students and postdocs. but we'll also provide some guidance about the types of projects that we anticipate are appropriate for the fall. There are few reservations or no reservations about welcoming back undergraduate researchers who already are familiar with the laboratory. We ask that PIs think carefully about starting new projects with undergraduates and make sure that it's possible with our social distancing guidelines to give them the attention and training that they need to be both safe and successful in the laboratory. And we also will encourage all mentors to make sure that activities for the fall involve a fallback plan that is pedagogically and experientially meaningful should we have to move off campus due to a resurgence of the pandemic. So with those bits of advice, we're happy to invite undergraduate researchers to come back. But we also have to keep in mind that over the course of the summer, our plans may evolve and change. And so we have to be ready to adapt to new circumstances that we see in front of us. But as of today, we would like to have undergraduates come back into the lab in the fall.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate that. Benoit, I believe this may be for you. Who are the building distributors? Have they been identified?
Okay, essentially what we've done at this stage, well, you have to understand something, okay? As of 2 days ago, we didn't even have, okay, the list of labs and all this. So we're running pretty fast on this. For the building distributors, the logic that's been done is take the building manager is going to be the one deciding who is going to do this. For me, it'd be micromanagement, and that would not do. But every building manager is going to, with the school chair, depending on the context, okay, just decide on who is or are those building distributors. In fact, the job is not really complex. It just needs to be done, okay, and done correctly, logging, okay, what has been delivered to each lab. It can be anybody from the people who are normally feeding major rooms with all kinds of consumables, okay, that they do, so adding to the routine, or they can be other people whose workload is a bit slower due to the COVID situation and would have time to do this. So as of now, I personally do not have the names. That's something that we will have by tomorrow and or at least by Friday, coming from the building manager. And those will have, like, for requiring for delivering delivering to the various labs. They will have to log whatever they've delivered. So automatically, normally we will recognize them more and more. But we want to have an okay from each building manager that those are persons are entitled to do it.
Perfect, thank you. This next one is also for you, I believe. Will this tool be available in the open domain? Will this tool be available in the open domain?
So repeat, please.
Sure. Will this tool be available in the open domain, for example, for hospitals to use?
Yeah, I'd love to. Okay, so that's the logic that we'd love to do, and that's why toward the end I say we could expand. Right now we've made it, okay, controlled it to be within Georgia Tech because all the supplies are within Georgia Tech, but we will be welcoming to once we make sure that it works here correctly, okay, that everything's been attached, okay, we'd be more than pleased to help any other public domain organization. Okay, we think there's a need at teaching level, universities, college, and so on, but also hospitals and all kind of other places. Right now, I'd say honestly that at the speed we've succeeded to do this, okay, that it's still not like a professional proof type of things. Okay, it's solid, but within the next few weeks, okay, we'll get it so that it could much better be exported to everybody. That's like one of our medium long-term and long-term year meeting just a few months from now. So we're trying to make sure that we're not going to put outside something that's not going to be tested and really improved enough, okay? Even though we cannot wait too long because COVID will be passed by that time. So it's a compromise here of testing it enough, okay, so that we can get there and not creating a VOC wherever they're used.
I hope you're right about it being passed. That would be great. One more for you, Benoit. About the PPE depot, is this a central point in the building, and have the building managers determined where that is yet? That may be the same as what you were answering about the contacts in the building.
Yeah, so for the PPE depot, essentially in most buildings, there are places where they're already storing stuff, okay? We just want to make sure that there's one place that is recognized by the building manager to say, hey, if you have to deliver PPEs, that's where you go and deliver them for the people that are going to come from, like right now, EHS, okay? So getting them there. And for us, again, I don't want to do too much micromanagement on this. It's just those guys do their buildings much better than we do. We just need from them to say where it's going to be, where is it going to be. We do a bit the same on the labs, okay? We don't have the manpower just to go in every lab. I can tell them exactly where to do it with shelving, etc. The people in there are all people that are either master student, PhD students, undergrads, postdocs, etc. So I think they can manage to do this, okay? So the idea is to set this, make it clear, made the signaling so that it's done well, and the rest is this should work nicely.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Rob, I'm going to start with you for this next question, and you can toss it over if you need to. How are we going to be becoming new graduate students training for research? Will everybody still need to go on GRA with overhead, and we are not allowed to train them because of the space and occupancy restrictions? In summer, our space restriction is 1 person per 150 square feet.
Keep in mind, that's the guideline right now, and we're only going into phase 1. As we go to phase 2 and progressive, we'll allow more people in the lab. So, you know, as Chris said, we're going to have to figure this out as the fall comes. There's a lot of uncertainty about what level occupancy will be at when the fall starts. We also don't know what our grad student enrollment is going to be in the fall. So I would say we expect a higher level of density by the start of the fall semester, but we're still not fully sure what that will be.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate that. Chris, I'll start with you on this one. Is contact tracing and COVID testing a requirement for Georgia Tech to move to the second phase of allowing researchers to return to campus?
Right, thank you for that question. Many will have seen, but probably not everyone will have seen, that we delayed the date at which phase 2 will commence. It was originally scheduled to be July 2nd, and it was delayed to July 13th. That was done in part to ensure that we have the time necessary to enact our COVID testing process on campus, which is going to be a voluntary process whereby we have the capacity to test several hundred people per day, as well as to put a contact tracing technology in place. I anticipate we will be able to do both of those over the course of the next several weeks, and we felt that increasing the density in the research spaces significantly before we had those tools available was not something we were totally comfortable with, and for that reason we decided to delay the move from phase 1 to phase 2 from that original July 2nd date to the July 13th date. So an approach towards exposure tracking, contact tracing, and virus testing remains in the works and is close to delivery.
Let me add on the contact tracing. There are two parts to it. There is an app that's we're nearing launching or finalizing. And there's also the manual contact tracing, which Department of Public Health will be doing. They'll be hiring people. So we'll probably have both. As Chris mentioned, when we get comfortable that we have enough tools to be able to contact trace and to get some other types of information, including the testing, then the research ramp up as well as the campus. Eventually, the campus ramp up, is going to be dependent on having the ability to do both.
Thank you, Chaouki. And thank you, Chris. I appreciate you answering the question about the PPE link in the chat, which is that link is only available to building managers. The next question, Chaouki, I'll start with you. You may need to throw this over to Chris or Rob. How are we ensuring the cleaning standards and regulations in non-Georgia Tech buildings, like the Biltmore, where only a few Georgia Tech groups are in the building, but the cleaning is not done by Georgia Tech?
That was actually a topic at the campus level task force this morning. Facilities is actively discussing with Synergy, CODA, Biltmore, how this is going to work, because each one is managed differently, and they've realized there's been a few hiccups about who's responsible for fogging or sanitization. But I was told this morning this is being very actively worked out this week.
Thank you. And along those same lines, Rob, what are the guidelines for shared spaces like elevators, lounges, or bathrooms? Are there occupancy limits, and how will the information be shared?
So I don't have the guidelines in front of me, but Capital Planning and Space Management has been working with building managers on a per building basis on signage, which some buildings are already deploying for the research ramp up, for where to enter, where to exit, traffic flow. I know in some buildings like IBB, they're already blocking off some furniture, removing it from public spaces, depending on space. Depending on the bathroom, they might mark off some stalls and say they're not for use. So that's happening on a building by building basis by the building managers working with Capital Planning and Space Management on initial guidance for the building.
Thank you, perfect. And one more for you, Rob. Since phase 2 was moved back to July 13th, does that mean that human subjects research is also moved back to July 13th?
In the human subject research guidelines, there were 2 dates, if you recall. There was July 6th for verbal and July 15th for everything else. We've just pushed the July 6th back to July 15th. So it's not much of a change on the human subject guidelines.
Thank you. Benoit, this may be back to you. In terms of space for storage, have the buildings that will hold 3 weeks worth of supplies been identified, and has this been communicated with that building?
Benoit, you're muted.
Benoit, can you hear me?
Sorry, my fault.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're targeting all the buildings, okay, that have researchers, that have labs, essentially, and there would be storage in each one. What we've done recently, because we had the issue that we didn't know all the populations in each lab, etc., but we got very recently, like a day and a half ago, the expected people. And playing conservative, now we've succeeded to put together a table that says, in your lab, okay, if you have 10 people, okay, then normally you should be, to keep you with your 3 days, what we say is in this lab, you should go and put that many masks of this type, okay, those many pairs of gloves of this size, etc. So this, and depending on number of people, so we've got this like in a table, like in the old engineering type of textbooks, okay, so that just to start. So this sheet, okay, we're trying to convey to the building managers as of today, so they'll get this in the labs. The minute that we get the contact with the lab manager, we're going to do it, but the idea is to get this, and given the amount of people that they have that we know in each building, what we've put together now is a sheet that tells us, according to now, how many people we expect to have in each of the research building, and for getting them their 2 weeks robust of stock, here's how much stock we want to have you in your building depot to keep. And so this will be forwarded like today or tomorrow morning to each building manager. Okay. So all the computations are being completed as of now. So, but essentially, as we're talking, just like a couple of weeks of stock, okay, this is not big stuff, okay, for most of it, okay. But there will be space on it. We picked the 2 weeks right now, not to be too last minute, but at the same time, too much deployment for nothing across campus. So, according to our computations, should not be a big thing on each building, okay, to do this. Remember, we're covering a very limited set of PPEs here.
Thank you very much, Benoit. That makes sense. Rob, going back to human subjects, the IRB documents say that all pediatric research is not allowed. Is there any timeline on when research with children will be resumed? It's not clear why the risks for children human subjects research is different than young adults. Rob,
The current thinking, and there are a lot of faculty involved with this, is right now they don't want to consider any possibly at-risk populations. And as you know, with human subject research, even if you say that medically children are at less risk, there's a lot of extra concerns with children, parental consent. And so I can't give you a timeline on that. There is an exemption for clinical research that's happening on another campus's facility when it's actually part of a clinical project. So I cannot give you a timeline right now.
thank you very much. I don't see any additional questions at the moment. Grace or Michael, is there anything else that we should answer before we wrap up?
I think we are good. If Dr. Abdallah would like to close it out for us and turn his video on.
Yeah, so one is I want to thank miscommunication about the things, some of
Dr. Abdallah, could you please turn your video on so I can send you up?
My video is on according to me. So I don't know what's happening. So
I can see him.
This has been very choppy. I've been cut off a couple of times and so on. So I don't know if it's the network, my network, or the app. But can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to thank everyone. Apologize for the wrong link that was put in I think in the Research Digest or whatever it came out. But here's one thing I want to tell people, and Chris mentioned that at the beginning. We're really flying the plane and we're building as we go. So there are a lot of things we're not going to get right, and your feedback here, including some of the questions, are very important. So I want to encourage you to both keep sending these messages. We're updating our FAQs on the research website, and in some cases, we have some guidance or we have some answer, and then it changes. So that's not because necessarily that we changed our mind. It's because we either got some new information or someone found a flaw in the logic. So I hope that I guess I'm pleading for both your understanding, but also to be very vocal in your responses or in your concerns. I've answered a couple in here. I know Chris has answered many of them in the chat, but there are a lot of stuff that I think we cannot answer directly in here, but we will put in the FAQs and so on. So with that, keep checking and email any of us, but give us your questions, give us your feedback. We'll try to answer them as best we can, and whenever it's possible or whenever it's general enough, then we'll put it also on the research website under the FAQs. One thing I want to also mention is we're focusing right now on the first phase or on the next phase of whatever we're doing, while thinking about the long term, meaning thinking about the fall or thinking about the third phase and so on and so forth. So in many cases, whatever we do right now could be either adjusted up or learn from it, and some we're saying maybe about the fall may not if we learn something in the meantime. There were a few questions. Different cleaning regime in the research space, and you know, we're gonna continue with that, but I am very confident that also we're gonna have the same type of cleaning regimen when we go into the fall, when we have teaching spaces and meeting spaces and so on. And with that, again, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank those who joined me to answer the questions, and please stay safe. Tomorrow, I think many of you or some of you will be on campus, and I'm going to be walking around trying to find some of you, and I'll stay physically away, but you know, hopefully I can see many of you and hear from you directly. But please stay safe. Thank you. Take care of yourself.